Hello everybody, my name is Auriga, playing some Battlefield 3 on the PC, and today I want to talk really geeky computer stuff. So if you're one of those guys who just bought a desktop computer, or you're even still playing on a laptop, this video might be so interesting to you. But whereas if you're really engaged gamer type, or just a PC enthusiast, you build your own shit or something like that, you'll probably like this video. But anyways, I want to talk about the findings of our beloved Ryan Shroud from or PC Perspective. It's both a YouTube channel, a homepage, and it's quite extensive. But anyways, they have been going at FPSs, frames per second, and frame times, frame ratings. And what does all these things mean? Well, if you're like me and you record gameplay for YouTube, you might be familiar with the program called Fraps. Fraps is a program that'll record what's happening on your screen, and a lot of people use it for recording gaming, such as myself. But what Ryan and the other PC Per guys found out is that actually there's a huge flaw in the matrix, or well, really in how graphics cards work, especially AMD graphics cards, but I'll get to that. Let's start with frames per second. What is it? Frames per second is how many pictures are being displayed on your screen for a second. A lot of professional gamers and gamers in general, like myself, will prefer to have at least 60 frames on your screen. And the amount of frames you can see on your screen is limited by stuff such as your monitor. Some monitors are 60 Hz, some are 120, and some are 144. It's different, and that number tells you how many frames you can see there per second. Right now I have a 60 Hz monitor, so I can see 60 frames per second. But the thing is, with Fraps, they've discovered that Fraps doesn't actually measure how many frames are displayed on your screen perfectly. It doesn't, and in some games, it's even half. You'll only see half of those frames that Fraps actually shows. So if Fraps shows 30 frames in some games, maybe you're only seeing 15. So yeah, this has really been quite a finding, and I'm really surprised as to how this couldn't have been found out earlier. But then again, I'm grateful for Ryan Shroud and his colleagues, and how they worked on this, and they're trying to get in touch with all these bigger channels. For instance, well, first I saw it on PC Per, then I saw it on Linus Tech Tips. Both good channels, check them out. But they're trying to kind of get this out to the gaming crowd, and I want to help them out because I'm also interested in stuff like this, although it might be a little geeky. But what they've seemed to have found out is that the whole thing is that you won't see one picture per second on the screen, such as you might imagine. Imagine like an old camera where you'd be spinning the camera and it would be printing one picture every time the reel hits a certain point on the film. That's not really how games work. The problem with how games render their images is that it usually won't render one image. It'll render like 3 images, and that will make up the entire picture on your screen for that little amount of time. But sometimes it puts in these little thing that Ryan coined as the grunt frame, and a grunt frame is like a little horizontal sliver of a frame, which will only be like a couple of centimeters tall, and of course it'll fill up all the way horizontally. Here's a picture to describe it. You'll see there's both blue and green and red here, and that's 3 different frames actually comprised into making one picture. And these grunt frames, although and the problem with these grunt frames is that Fraps will actually record the grunt frame itself and display it as in that number, how many frames do you have, up in the left corner. It'll actually show you that it's part of those frames, even though it's only a little bit of sliver that won't really help you in any case. We all know these things and can recognize them from screen tearing when you have VSync turned off. Ryan and PC also found out that the most frequent place you'll find problems with frame ratings is with the AMD graphics, because AMD and Nvidia have two different ways that they've made their graphics cards. Way back with the G80 graphics core, they implemented like an algorithm. I'll try to explain it so most people can understand it. They integrated an algorithm into how the GPU or the graphics card works, which makes it so that instead of just spitting out frames as frequently as it can, it actually spends time within the GPU to get rid of these grunt frames, although that the term hadn't been coined at that time. But the problem seems to be with AMD's graphics cards, where by the way, doesn't apply to single GPU graphics cards as much as it applies to graphics cards in Crossfire, because what AMD's graphics cards problem is that the way their algorithm is set up is so that their graphics cards will try to spit out as many images as it possibly can every second, which will further these grunt frames. So on AMD graphics card Crossfire setups, people have been complaining a lot, and Ryan Shroud has found the problem, and I just wanted to share this with you. It's really problematic. I've always been more of an Nvidia guy, so I'm still sitting with my my 580 here in my computer, and that's, you know, it's probably not going to change. I'm going to be Nvidia for life, probably, also because of what just happened recently. I mean, Nvidia prices are getting better, AMD prices are also getting better, and they have all these deals with games, but they only really apply to Canada and America, and I'm from Denmark, so I don't really get to, you know, get anything from that. But now when you also find out that AMD has all these problems with Crossfire and Grunt Frames, and in some cases with AMD cards, Ryan Shroud actually said in the Linus Tech Tips interview that in some cases, in some Crossfire setup with certain games, that actually in some cases it could go as horrible as Fraps would show. That it's displaying 60 frames, whereas it would only be displaying 30 frames. That's half the frames of what you're expecting, and you bought two graphics cards. I mean, to pay you know, so many goddamn money for something that works so poorly is just not fair, and that's why I think this is something that people should really be thinking about. Of course, AMD has addressed that they recognize this problem, and that they're working on it, but it seems to be something very fundamental to how their GPUs work. So how they're gonna work around this problem, I don't know. But am I sticking with Nvidia in the future? Yes. Do they always have the, you know, like the biggest flagship, the most intimidating graphics card? Yes. Are they also trying to, you know, innovate how their graphics cards work? Yes. You know, look at the GTX Titan with the GPU Boost 2.0. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. It 100% relies on the heat of the graphics card and its surrounding to boost how how well it can overclock. I mean, that's awesome. So if you have a cold computer case and a lot of airflow, maybe, you know, then the graphics card is just gonna be kicking ass, you know, handing names. Anyways, this has been my little talk about frame ratings and just trying to get the word out there. I know it might not have been the most interesting Battlefield 3 video from me, but it's something that I found to be a legitimate concern of mine, or at least something I want you guys to think about, because a lot of guys playing Battlefield, and a lot of guys, you know, preparing to buy Battlefield 4 on the computer are probably gonna be, you know, building your own computers and, you know, buying graphics cards. So I just thought that you should hear this from me. Stick to Nvidia, at least until this program, or at least until this problem has been addressed, and try to stay away from crossfire setups. That's two AMD graphics cards. You can go for SLI setups, but they have other issues. But that's called micro stuttering, and that's a whole other thing. But this has been it for me. It's been a pleasure. My name is Auriga, and see ya.